24시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News, South Korean President Yoon embarks on his trip to San Francisco to attend the APEC summit, where he plans to discuss what will help the country's economy and seek a response to North Korea-Russia military ties. Also in San Francisco, top diplomats from South Korea, the US, and Japan sit down for talks, stressing the need for close trilateral cooperation, including on military ties between North Korea and Russia. Meanwhile, Pyongyang says it has successfully developed a new type of engine for intermediate-range ballistic missiles that's harder to detect and quicker to prepare for an attack. Israeli forces raid al-Shifa hospital, Gaza's largest medical complex where thousands are reportedly taking shelter, claiming it includes Hamas command center. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with President Yoon Suk-yeol's overseas diplomacy this week. He departed for San Francisco today for a high-stakes meeting with APEC leaders on expanding trade and seeking a response against North Korea-Russia military ties. On the sidelines, he's set to meet with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida and could also sit down with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Presidential Office correspondent Kim Do-yeon leads us off.
Amid crises and challenges, from the conflict between Israel and Hamas and the war in Ukraine to climate change and supply chain disruptions, President Yoon Suk-yeol embarks on a mission to boost South Korea's status as a global pivotal state as he heads on Wednesday to San Francisco for the APEC summit.
저는 세계 GDP의 60% 이상을 차지하는 회원국의 정상들이 한데 모이는 이번 회의에서 공급망 다변화와 무역 투자 확대와 같이 우리 경제에 실질적으로 보탬이 되는 협력 방안을 논의할 것입니다.
As soon as he lands, before he starts his official diplomatic events, he's set to meet over lunch with local Koreans and people of Korean descent, a customary schedule that he has kept for most of his overseas trips. His first event related to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation is the APEC CEO Summit, a business forum run by the chairing country, the US. At that summit, Yoon will give a keynote speech. He then will attend a reception for the leaders and end his first day in San Francisco by meeting young leaders in technology. The official working sessions for APEC will start on Thursday under the theme of creating a resilient and sustainable future for all. Laying out South Korea's role in global cooperation, Yoon will attend the meetings and offer support to countries vulnerable to climate change. He'll also emphasize the need for multilateral efforts to strengthen supply chains and establish digital ethical standards amid the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence. Amid a series of APEC meetings, Yoon's sideline meetings with other leaders are also noteworthy. First, set to attend a summit of the US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, also known as IPEF. He's also set to meet his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida and jointly deliver a speech at Stanford University. With a sideline summit between US President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping, there is also a possibility that a sideline meeting between Yoon and Xi could happen. In terms of regional security, President Yoon has said that during the APEC summit, he will bring up the arms exchanges between North Korea and Russia to emphasize what this really means to global security. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also in San Francisco, top diplomats from Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo have met and agreed on bolstering their three-way cooperation in many areas. One of those include addressing military cooperation between Russia and North Korea. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Bae Eun-ji, has details.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin met with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts in San Francisco on Tuesday local time and stressed the importance of trilateral cooperation.
The rules-based international order is facing multiple challenges in this poly-crisis era. Strengthening cooperation among like-minded countries is more important than ever, which is why the three of us are here.
He added that the three countries' national security advisors are expected to meet at the inaugural Indo-Pacific Dialogue. Japan's foreign minister also said Tokyo seeks to work together with Seoul and Washington, as the global challenges they face demand a higher level of strategic coordination.
I would like to work together with both of you to uphold the free and open international order based on the rule of law, as well as to aim for a world caring for human dignity.
And the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there's much work to do.
But events in the Middle East, shared economic cooperation, shared growth, addressing the security implications of the DPRK, Russia military cooperation, and a number of regional and global issues, including our ongoing support for Ukraine. These and more are on our agenda together.
During Tuesday's meeting, Seoul's foreign ministry said the three officials decided to closely cooperate to respond to the military ties between North Korea and Russia, a matter that they agreed is a serious threat to the Korean peninsula, as well as international peace and security. Pyongyang is believed to have provided Moscow with weapons and ammunition to use in Russia's war against Ukraine, in exchange for technology for its nuclear and missile programs. As for the situation in the Middle East, the three officials condemned the Hamas militant group's attack on Israel and called for an immediate release of hostages. They also agreed to work together to resolve the humanitarian crisis in the region. Peunji, Arirang News.
North Korea says it has successfully developed a new type of solid fuel engine for intermediate-range ballistic missiles that's harder to detect and quicker to prepare for an attack. North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil explains.
North Korea's state-run KCNA reported on Wednesday that the North had successfully conducted hot-fire tests of, quote, new types of high-thrust, solid propellant engines for intermediate-range ballistic missiles. It said the first stage engine's hot-fire test was conducted on November 11th and the second stage tested on November 14th. Until now, North Korean IRBM technology was based on using liquid propellants. Military experts say solid-fueled missiles, though, allow greater maneuverability and stealth before launch, which is why experts warn that it will be harder to detect and prepare for an attack by missiles that use this type of propellant.
I have to say that solid propellant got a very good response. So it did not take time to prepare for the attack. It did take less than 5 minutes comparing to liquid. That is going to be a problem. That means we cannot have enough time to be able to, prepare for any attack from North Korea.
The KCNA also added that the test provided a guarantee for reliably accelerating the development of the new type IRBM system. North Korea's General Missile Bureau put great significance on the new IRBM, saying the recent tests were a necessary process to enhance the strategic offensive capabilities of the North Korean military in the, quote, grave and unstable security environment and against the vicious military illusion by its enemies. Professor Chang added that the South Korean military would be aware of this situation and would be looking for a solution. Other experts also said that to detect missiles in advance, space assets such as satellites are necessary, which are extremely costly, and perhaps even they might not be enough. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea and the U.S. today held a combined aerial exercise involving the American Air Force's B-52H strategic bombers in their latest show of force against North Korea. Seoul's Defense Ministry says the joint drill was conducted over waters off South Korea's west coast. South Korea's F-35A and F-15K fighters, as well as the U.S. F-35B and F-16s, also took part. This was the 12th time this year that the allies have held this kind of joint drill, and the first time in about a month that Washington has sent its B-52 bombers to Korea. Next week, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, is expected to dock at the Busan Naval Base. U.S. Defense Chief Lloyd Austin has earlier highlighted that the deployment of strategic assets to South Korea in recent months demonstrates Washington's commitment to extended deterrence. The U.S. and China agreed to relaunch a working group on climate cooperation ahead of a bilateral summit between the leaders of the two countries at the COP28 summit later this month. In a joint statement released on Wednesday, they've pledged to work closely on methane and plastic pollution to tackle the climate crisis. This followed talks between U.S. and Chinese climate envoys John Kerry and Shi Jianhua at Sunnylands in California. The revival of the working group would mark the normalization of the climate relationship between Washington and Beijing following a hiatus after the U.S. House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August last year. The Israeli military raided Gaza's al-Shifa hospital early Wednesday morning, which it deems as a Hamas command center. Thousands of Palestinians are believed to be sheltering in the medical complex. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
Israeli forces have stormed Gaza's largest medical facility, the Dar al-Shifa hospital, on Wednesday morning. Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Hagari said the same day that the military was carrying out a targeted operation inside al-Shifa.
Based on intelligence information and an operational necessity, IDF forces are carrying out a precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area in the Shifa hospital. The IDF is conducting a ground operation in Gaza to defeat Hamas and rescue our hostages.
The spokesperson added that the military encountered explosives and eliminated terrorists before entering the hospital. Palestinian officials reported seeing dozens of soldiers and tanks inside the complex. According to the director of hospitals in Gaza, the forces entered areas of the building, including the emergency and surgery departments. The Director General of the Gaza Health Ministry also said there were big explosions, which were believed to have occurred inside the hospital. Sources say an estimated 650 patients remain in the facility, with thousands sheltered in the medical complex. A Hamas media officer criticized the raid.
Netanyahu and his defeated army's attempt to portray the incursion of their tanks to Shifa hospital as if it were some kind of achievement is political immaturity and an exposed theatrical move which won't work on anyone and will not be believed by anyone.
Israel's attacks on al-Shifa started hours after the White House backed Israel's allegations that Hamas is using Gaza's largest medical facility as a command center and a storage depot for weapons. Hamas denied the claims. Due to the ongoing war, the hospital is out of fuel and patients are no longer being fed. The IDF military said that it had delivered medical equipment, incubators, and baby food to al-Shifa hospital and is making sure that the medical equipment reaches those who need it. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
On the local front, South Korea last month saw an all-time high employment rate for any October, recording an on-year increase in the number of those employed for 3 months in a row. But it was led by those in their 60s, while those in their teens and 20s have seen a decline. Our Park Gun-woo explains.
South Korea's employment figures rose in October for the third consecutive month. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, 346,000 jobs were added on year last month, with the employment rate seeing its biggest jump for any October at 63.3%. This was also the largest addition since May last year. By industry, employment numbers in the wholesale and retail sectors saw a jump of over 10,000, increasing for the first time in 53 months. Figures have been sliding due to structural changes within the industry, such as automated sales points, but numbers surged last month thanks to a tourism boost during the long holiday period in October. Other sectors, including health and social welfare, IT, and accommodation and restaurants, all saw increases in October.
But the manufacturing sector, especially electronic components and machinery, saw employment figures drop by 77,000, with the base effect from the 200,000 jobs created the year before a contributing factor. By age, there were over 336,000 workers aged 60 and above compared to the month before, while employment figures for young adults aged 15 to 29 decreased by over 80,000. During an emergency economic ministerial meeting held on Wednesday, the government announced measures to boost employment and encourage young adults to find jobs.
The government will strengthen early support for young adults at each step of school, work, and job hunting so that they can find the jobs they want.
The solutions include increases in internship programs for students, counseling for young adults who have just started working, and incentives and consultations for job hunters. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
South Korea's shipbuilding industry has been thriving despite the global economic slowdown. The government is seeking to give it a further boost by injecting over $500 million over the next 5 years that'll be used to support its green transition, among others. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
South Korea is ramping up efforts to boost its shipbuilding sector as it seeks to dominate the global market. During an emergency economic meeting on Wednesday, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced that the government will invest around 710 billion Korean won, roughly $544 million in the industry over the next 5 years. The sector makes up around 3% of total manufacturing and exports. Since 2017, South Korea has had a global market share of around 30%, and in October reached its highest order backlog since 2011. While the government says the industry is expected to keep growing, it faces many threats, including a workforce deficit, China's growing shipbuilding industry, and the International Maritime Organization's goal of reducing greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. These problems are set to be tackled in 3 different ways: developing future technology, systemizing the manufacturing process, and in modifying regulations. The government will inject 200 billion won into the commercialization of non-carbon-based fuels, such as liquefied natural gas, ammonia, and hydrogen for use in ships. The southeastern port city of Ulsan will have an area dedicated to supplying eco-friendly fuel and will supply more than a quarter of the fuel demand of domestic ships. The Minister of Oceans and Fisheries stressed the importance of this plan.
Global shipping companies are undergoing large-scale conversions to eco-friendly ships, and the availability of eco-friendly fuel at ports will be necessary for port competitiveness in the future.
A further 150 billion won will be spent on digitalizing and automating the manufacturing process, as well as the employment of 3,000 more workers every year to tackle labor shortages. Revamping the visa policy and increasing quotas for foreign workers, as well as establishing programs to help them adjust to life in South Korea, are also among the solutions proposed. The country's finance minister, Chu Kyung-ho, added that the government will be providing small to medium-sized companies with additional support, such as incentives for going green and incorporating digital technology. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Politicians of Korean descent from countries around the world came together in Seoul this week for this year's Global Korean Politicians Forum. On this occasion, our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo sat down with Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke of Hawaii, who shared her story.
The story of their origin is what unites ethnically Korean politicians overseas. At the 9th Global Korean Politicians Forum being held in Seoul, Sylvia Luke, the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii and the first Korean American to hold a U.S. statewide office, shared her story.
Our origin stories are very similar about our experiences, some of the challenges we have in our current country. But in order to build this bridge with Korea and to come back and have a connection with each other, this is such a wonderful opportunity.
Born in Seoul, Luke immigrated with her family to Honolulu as a child.
I immigrated from Korea when I was 9 years old, back in 1977. And even back then, my mother, in her struggle to raise a family and to care for her family, she always took time out in her own schedule to care for people at the church or to care for other individuals who are sick at the church. And so growing up, we always felt that there were always people who were less fortunate than us and who needed help.
The immigrant background is what drives these politicians.
If you look at even our immigration story, 120 years ago, Koreans from Incheon left Korea to work in sugarcane fields in Hawaii, and that was 120 years ago. And those individuals who worked so hard, they sent part of their earnings back to Korea to help create a university, and that's the Inhwa University, which stands for Incheon and Hawaii. That tells you how Koreans and a lot of Korean families really value education and want to help the next generation succeed.
Lieutenant Governor Luke carried out the initial response when wildfires broke out in Hawaii in August while the governor was out of town. During the response and the impact afterwards, South Korea showed great support.
Korean government was the first country to respond to the Maui fires. In fact, the Consul General called Mr. Park Jin-hye, the MOFA Minister of Foreign Affairs, and said, U.S. is always there when Korea needs help. And now we're at a point where South Korean government should be there for humanitarian efforts when other countries, other allies need help. And within a couple weeks, South Korean government provided $2 million in humanitarian aid to the people of Maui. No other countries came up as fast as South Korea. And I can't thank South Korea enough for the generosity and the love that it showed for the people of Maui.
And she looks forward to further connections on the 120th anniversary of immigration from Korea to the United States and beyond.
We have a lot of things that we can gain from other challenges and other things that we have dealt with. So I look forward to continuing to connect with the South Korean government and its people.
이시후, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea is counting down one day to its annual College Scholastic Ability Test, also known as Suneung, here in the country, for more than 500,000 students. Our Yoon goes over some of the things to consider ahead of the big day tomorrow.
On Wednesday, some 504,588 students preparing to take the annual college admissions exam can visit their test site and confirm their elective test subjects. The exam, that is seen as deciding students' futures, will be conducted on Thursday across 1,279 test centers, which are normally designated high schools or middle schools. According to the Ministry of Education, not only is there a significant decrease in the number of registered test takers this year at 3,442 less than last year, but only 64.7% of the test takers are high school seniors. Rather, 31.7% are retaking the exam, marking the highest proportion of retakes in 28 years. The testing centers will open at 6:30 a.m. on Thursday, and students can enter until 10 minutes past 8 a.m. This is the fourth Suneung exam since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the first where no virus prevention rules will be implemented and all students at a venue will be taking the exam in the same room. But the Education Ministry has recommended that anyone confirmed to have the virus should wear a K94 mask and anyone with symptoms should wear a K80 mask. The ministry added that test takers who have the virus should eat lunch in a separate area. All test takers must enter their designated testing centers with their exam identification slip and official form of identification. To avoid confusion or mishaps on the morning of the exam, students are strongly recommended to check the location of their test center on the previous day. The only items that students are allowed to bring into the exam are black computer marking pens, white correction tape, a black mechanical pencil and extra .5mm lead, and an eraser. Those that wish to use a watch may wear an analog watch that doesn't have a Bluetooth function, including communication and payment functions, and doesn't have an LCD or LED display. And all electronic devices are prohibited. This includes all mobile phones, smart devices, earphones with Bluetooth functions, electronic dictionaries or calculators, as well as electronic cigarettes. With just 1 day left until the Suneung exam, students are recommended to limit consumption of caffeinated drinks and to get a good night's sleep to be in their best condition. 이은진, Arirang News.
No severe weather is in the forecast tomorrow, which is Suneung Day, but unsettled weather pattern may be seen from time to time as a low-pressure system will be dropping showers nationwide. As for the readings, we'll see temperatures hovering around 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Showers will start from western regions tomorrow morning and they will gradually spread nationwide. As for the amount of rainfall, 전라도 provinces in Jeju Island will see 10 to 30. The Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongdo province will see 5 to 30. The surrounding regions, including Gangwon-do and Gyeongsangbuk-do provinces, will see around 5 to 20 millimeters. Seoul and Jeju Island will see rain for the morning hours. Readings will be ranging from 1 to 11 degrees nationwide. Rain will have spread nationwide by the daytime. Highs in Seoul peak at 8 degrees, Gwangju 11, Busan will reach 16 degrees. With readings plunging on Friday, some regions will see rain turning into snow. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.